Hey, we are Alex and Nicholas, and today we are presenting you some information about Cuba's infrastructure. Cuba's early 20th century infrastructure could be characterized as highly successful. The island boasted some of the most extensive engineering projects in Latin America, ranging from the 1953 Havana Bay Tunnel, shown here, or the 120-year-old Acueducto de Alvear.
However, the current state of Cuba's national infrastructure in most sectors remains challenged. The sudden economic vacuum resulting from the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s and the continued U.S. trade sanctions starved the island of the materials and resources necessary to develop new facilities or maintain existing ones. The state has generally prioritized improvements in tourist locations with the proclaimed intention of increasing revenue to fund further projects. Elsewhere, many components are improvised at best, if not entirely neglected. Drinking water and sanitation, once some of the island's most salient civil provisions, today operate unreliably. Although the quality of the ground and surface water on the island could generally be considered good when it leaves source facilities, as much as half of it is lost due to leaks or contamination in delivery due to failing pipe networks. Nearly a quarter of the population regularly fills its drinking water cisterns from a tanker truck, especially during periods of drought and incremental pipe repairs. While a good portion of Cuba's population is actually connected to some form of sewage collection, in recent years as little as 4% of it has been regularly treated before being discharged. In urban areas with extensive sewage systems, it becomes increasingly important to develop proper wastewater treatment facilities to accommodate the growing population. On the other hand, recent sustainable agricultural practice has generally diminished the volume of industrial contamination. The current deficiencies in the drinking water delivery and wastewater collection networks allow for opportunities. In addition to new wastewater treatment plants and settlement tanks being built in Havana, innovative wastewater de-irrigation technologies are also being tested, which would pair well with the already robust sustainable agriculture sector. A household tap water filter program could curb the immediate need of an infrastructure overhaul by instead destination treating drinking water. Although internet has been on the island since the mid-90s, particularly between naval bases and the US mainland, the Cuban government communications monopoly, Intexa, has only recently begun to ease restrictions on public connectivity. Personal computers were illegal until 2008, and Wi-Fi was only first introduced in 2015 in the form of paid hotspots, with the aid of Huawei and an undersea cable to Venezuela. By 2018, broadband connections were allowed from home, but the cost remained prohibitive and censorship is real. This is not to say that Cubans hadn't found alternative ways to connect. Since household computers were legalized, an informal yet sophisticated neighborhood internet sprung up in Havana called SNET, or Street Network, which strung thousands of users together across hundreds of meters of cable to central antennas and offered homegrown social media, news, and gaming platforms. Intexa has long allowed this to exist, but since last year has been integrating it into its centralized network, which has decreased speeds and monetized connections. 2G and 3G mobile data have been available for some years, especially to foreigners on roaming plans, and 4G services available to a limited extent in some urban areas. The Intexa monopoly increases coverage and SIM penetration, which is now over 50%, but its services remain expensive. Alternatives have sprung up in the form of SMS news packages that deliver information via text message. Customer greetings are often foregone to save minutes, and quick call hangups are sometimes used as a form of digital paging.
Cuba's transportation contains of roadworks, railways, waterways, airports, and harbors. The transportation policy accords to state-governed strategic principles and regulations. Due to past political, economic, and social influences, Cubans themselves have set up unique measures to enable public mobility and diverse means of transportation coexist on Cuban roads. One of Cuba's infrastructure curiosities is its low shipping network in comparison to other island nations. Geographical reachability of Northern America led to severe boat exodus during crisis years. In order to prevent further migration, boarding any kind of vessel is highly regulated, owning a ship almost impossible. Due to the US wet feet, dry feet policy, Cubans are still taking the risk of crossing the ocean on improvised floating devices. Older generations often disregard using bicycles as a sign of the 1980s deprivations. In recent years, the younger generation seem to rediscover the bicycle as a favorable addition to transportation, being affordable, energy neutral, and reliable, symbolizing the future-oriented changes in Cuba's transportation away from fuel dependency. As for a long time, Cuba's energy mix is primarily based on fossil energy, heavily depending on oil. Nowadays, almost 90% of the energy is won by Venezuelan petrol. To be less dependent on energy imports, Cuba's main objective is to self-produce at least a third of its needed energy by 2030. Cuba already processes many of its agricultural and sugarcane waste into biomass energy on industrial scale. Since 2019, the Cuban officials also engaged the public to install private solar panels to support delicate energy infrastructure. Natural disasters as well as government shutdowns often leave the island without energy.